Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Parth Bapat, a visiting faculty from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Today we are looking at human ecology. So far we have looked at two other topics. One is introduction to environment. The other is, as you must be remembering, about ecosystems. In today's topic, we are essentially going to look at humans as components of an ecosystem, how humans and the environment interface, how humans change their environment, and how the environment in turn changes human beings. What is the position of a human from an ecosystem point of view? Humans are a terrestrial species and hence are a natural component of terrestrial ecosystem. A human organism is a biotic component of the terrestrial ecosystem it occupies. Being incapable of producing food within its own body, it directly or indirectly feeds on producer organisms to obtain energy for its life processes. Thus, its role in its ecosystem is that of a heterotroph or consumer. The human organism belongs to the group of organisms recognized as animals. So, like most other members of this group, it is capable of locomotion, which means it can change its location from an uncomfortable one to one of more comfort. The human organism is a vertebrate, also called higher animal. So, like other higher animals, it has a tough yet flexible internal structure called a backbone, which supports it, protects vulnerable body parts, and enables very versatile movements. Like other higher animals, it also has a brain, a powerful stimulus processing and response control center protected by the skull structure. The human organism belongs to a vertebrate group called mammals. So, like most other mammals, it gives birth to live young ones, produces fewer children at a time, takes a lot of care of its young, and trains them to survive. The human being belongs to a mammal group called primates. So, like most other primates, such as monkeys or apes, it has a hand structure capable of very versatile actions such as wielding tools. But what makes the human organism a completely unique component of any ecosystem it occupies are two unique abilities. It is the only animal capable of speech and therefore very versatile communication. It is also believed to be the only organism with a sense of future and an ability to plan consciously for that future. These two qualities enable or compel humans to outcompete fellow organisms in capturing ecosystem resources and to change ecosystems in ways that improve their own chances of immediate survival over those of their fellow organisms. Humans are believed to have evolved in the tropical savannas and are physically best adapted to warm climates and open grassland ecosystems. The human discovery of and eventual control over fire enabled humans to burn down forests and convert more tropical areas to grasslands, thereby increasing the territory available to them. It also enabled humans to survive in the colder temperate and even polar climates, thereby opening whole new lands to them. And it also enabled to cook, thereby tremendously increasing the range and quantity of food available to them. The ability to cook also increased human food security considerably. For the dry, hard seeds that humans could now include in their diet were tremendously durable and storable. Fossil records suggest that the physical appearance of humans has undergone hardly any change over the last 35,000 years. And we have no reason to believe that those earlier humans were any less intelligent than modern ones. This means that human history for the last over 35,000 years has been one of cultural evolution and not biological evolution. Now that we have looked at humans as just another organism, let's move on to look at humans and their environment and the interface between them. Humans interact with their environments primarily to obtain the water and food that they, like all terrestrial animals, need to ingest on a regular basis. Let us check out how humans go about procuring these two basic materials from their environments and how human water and food procurement endeavors affect their environments. Let's begin by looking at water. Humans, like all terrestrial organisms, need to drink fresh water periodically to maintain life. They also typically use water to facilitate cleaning of their bodies, clothes and utensils, as also to cook most of their foods. Humans access water most directly and, like most other terrestrial organisms, through naturally occurring surface water bodies, such as the flowing water of springs, streams and rivers, or the still accumulated water of ponds and lakes. This remains the most common way in which human societies procure water and the one that creates direct competition between humans and other organisms, both terrestrial and aquatic, in meeting the basic need for life-sustaining fresh water. A less direct but nearly as common human way of accessing water is by digging a hole in the ground to access groundwater. Though this human method of accessing water is based on a water source not directly accessed by most terrestrial organisms, it indirectly creates competition between humans and other organisms. This is because groundwater is a source of surface water recharge. So, extraction of groundwater by humans depletes the backup water stock of surface water bodies. Indeed, in many areas where humans practice excessive extraction of groundwater, surface water bodies, previously known to be perennial, have begun to dry up in the dry season. But the pressure exerted by human societies on the water resources of different ecosystems is not limited to the water extracted or polluted by humans for drinking, cooking and cleaning. Modern humans have created and continue to create different systems that demand water. Such water demanding systems range from irrigated agriculture to water powered electricity generation to water intense industries. Humans have also organized themselves into densely populated habitations called cities, which inevitably need more water than the local ecosystems contain. To meet the water demands of their irrigation, hydropower, industry, and urban water supply systems, humans create tremendously large storages of fresh water. Such large storages are easiest achieved by impounding the natural running water of large rivers by damming their flows. A dam obstructs the flow of the river, forcing the water to accumulate into a reservoir, submerging a large area on the upstream side of the dam. When the flowing water of a river is converted into the standing water of a dam reservoir, it loses its capacity to get aerated and its oxygen content dips. The water column of the reservoir is much taller than the depth of the river when it flowed. Since sunlight can penetrate water only up to a limited depth, the same sunlight that could reach the bottom of the river can only warm and light up the upper layers of the dam reservoir, leaving the lower waters cold and dark. Owing to its lack of light, warmth, and oxygen, the dam reservoir, despite its huge water stock, can no longer support the different aquatic plants that populated the riverbed or the food chains of aquatic animals that lived on them. Coastal and marine ecosystem depend on land flows for water and nutrients. They are among the many downstream ecosystems deprived of water and nutrients owing to the damming of rivers. There are examples of coastal and marine fisheries collapsing owing to lack of sufficient nutrients, as also examples of jetties and ports being rendered useless owing to lack of sufficient water depth, both caused by damming of the rivers feeding these coastal and marine ecosystems. The physical barrier created by the dam also fragments the river channel into two disconnected sections. Thus, the aquatic organisms in either section effectively lose access to biotic and abiotic resources of the remaining section. Thus, human methods of getting and using water result in considerable degradation of both terrestrial and aquatic systems. Let's now look at how humans procure food from their ecosystems. Humans as a species are believed to have originated in the tropics. Like most of their primate relatives, humans are omnivorous in their feeding habits. The human diet before the discovery of agriculture, it seems to have ranged from vegetable matter such as seeds, fruits, fleshy flowers, fleshy leaves, and starchy stems or roots, to animal products such as honey, eggs, caterpillars, and worms, all of which are available more or less year-round in the warm, sunny tropical climates. This primarily gathered diet was possibly supplemented by the occasional hunting of small and large game. Thus, pre-agricultural humans were more of gatherers than hunters. Humans in different parts of the world seem to have discovered agriculture around the same time, which is as recently as about 10,000 years ago, though the crops they began to cultivate were different. Fossil records in Eurasia show up cultivated forms of wheat and barley, along with domesticated animals such as cows, buffaloes, goat, and sheep, likely to have been utilized for milk and meat. The fossil records of the Americas point to corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and gourds. The development of agriculture is generally agreed upon as the single most important event in the cultural evolution of humans. It changed the till then nomadic lifestyle of humans to a settled one. Also, a given area under agriculture can support several times as many people as that same area if used for gathering and hunting. So, agriculture enabled humans to settle down in large communities that kept thriving, multiplying, and growing ever larger. From an ecological point of view, practicing farming or animal rearing in an ecosystem amounts to diverting the materials and energy of that ecosystem towards some select few crops or livestock species that humans wish to cultivate. This also means that humans are diverting those materials and energy away from the other organisms that are part of these ecosystems. Humans try to eliminate these other organisms, often referred to by humans as weeds or pests, by applying ecosystem contaminants like herbicides or pesticides, while they try to promote the growth of their favored species by applying ecosystem polluters like fertilizers. Thus, agriculture entails degradation of ecosystems through reduction of their biodiversity and pollution or contamination of their soil, water, and food chains. Another traditional human food procurement activity is fishery. Technically a form of hunting, fishery is believed to have been very much a part of the gatherer-hunter phase of human evolution. Many traditional fishing practices based on capturing fish using specialized ecosystem-specific or species-specific traditional fishing gear continue to be practiced almost unchanged in different types of water bodies all across the world. Aquaculture, which involves cultivation of select preferred fish or prawn species, usually in inland ponds or dam reservoirs, is also believed to be a fairly old human tradition. While traditional subsistence fishing has little adverse impact on aquatic ecosystems, modern commercial fishing operates at a scale and uses methods that drastically deplete population of aquatic species and threaten the stability of coastal and marine ecosystems. Such fishing, based on large mechanized boats and huge fine mesh nets, results in indiscriminate and wasteful harvesting of marine life, diminishing the population of not only popular table species but also of a number of inedible or unpopular species which get netted as bycatch and often discarded as waste. Now that we have looked at how humans procure water and food by interacting with their ecosystems, let's look at some of the other interactions that humans have with their ecosystems, their environments. Basic needs of a human individual as an organism start with water and food and end with shelter and mate. But owing to the human organism's unique cultural evolution, it has developed a few more needs which could be considered near basic. These broadly include fuel, clothing, building materials like stone, mud and wood, medicine or health care, and fodder for livestock. A third set of human needs, also near basic, includes the tools or implements that help humans accomplish their various life-sustaining activities, and the transportation devices that facilitate human movement from one place to another. Human attempts to meet all these other needs create a range of human-environment interfaces similar to the ones we saw in the exploitation of the human quest for water and food. Let's move on to the next topic where we will look at how the influence of environment happens on humans. Since humans occupy areas that are very different in climate, topography, soil, vegetation, and other organisms, their attempts to meet their basic and near basic needs get defined by different abiotic and biotic circumstances. These differences show up as the distinctly different types of water supply systems, food habits, recipes, apparel, architecture, energy systems, tools, modes of transport, and so on in different ecosystems. At the same time, similarities and patterns can be discerned in the materials, designs, and systems of human life sharing common latitudes or altitudes, common biomes, or similar locations on continents. The ease with which humans can meet their needs is decided by the natural subsidies available to their ecosystems. The term natural subsidy refers to the easy availability of an abiotic or biotic factor required by life and which, if scarce, act as a limiting factor. As a rule, the tropical regions of the earth receive more natural subsidies in the form of life promoting sunlight, warmth, and rain compared to its temperate or polar regions. Similarly, since gravity always causes materials from higher locations to be washed down to lower locations, ecosystems or habitats in any relatively higher locations, as a rule, tend to lose resources and enjoy fewer natural subsidies compared to a relatively lower location which tends to receive such resources. For instance, hilltops lose soil while valleys receive it, or source region of a river are nutrient poor while its estuarine reaches are nutrient rich. Another type of naturally subsidized location is one at the interface of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems where resources of both get added to provide an overall higher natural subsidy. As the areas around ponds or lakes, along streams or rivers or near coasts provide more natural subsidies than areas which do not enjoy such a land-water interface. Overall, human life tends to be easier in naturally subsidized ecosystems, a fact borne out by the relatively higher human populations supported by the Earth's tropical regions as compared to temperate and polar regions, valleys as compared to mountains or hills, riverine deltas as compared to headwaters, and lacustrine or riverine floodplains and continental coast as compared to highlands or continental interiors. After looking at how the environment influences or the ecosystems influence human life, let's look at how humans have influenced their surroundings, their environments, their ecosystems. The human, a creature evolved in the plains, seems to show a marked preference for creating habitations in plain spaces. Thus, human interventions into the ecosystems they choose to occupy mainly involve land clearing, which amounts to removing the land's natural vegetation cover, mainly trees, along with the habitats of or food, roosts, nesting materials, etc. that the vegetation provided, and land leveling, which amounts to altering the area's natural topography and drainage, which could mean drying up of wetlands or waterlogging of hitherto dry areas. The human organism, despite spending the major part of its existence as a nomadic gatherer-hunter, seems to identify more with a settled agricultural dependent life. Thus, other significant human interventions into terrestrial ecosystems mainly involve land cultivation, which amounts to modifying the natural habitats available previously, and building, which amounts to more or less permanently covering up the soil habitats underneath and cutting off their sunlight and rain. So humans, like all organisms, need water as a critical resource. It remains that the human is not an aquatic but a terrestrial species. So when it comes to developing a space into a human habitat, humans strive to keep the water away. Thus, human interventions into the semi-aquatic or aquatic ecosystems mainly involve filling up of ditches, marshes, and wetlands, which amounts to complete destruction of these semi-aquatic ecosystems, and embankment of lakes, streams, and rivers, which amounts to degradation of these aquatic ecosystems. Humans also seem to perceive ecosystems and their resources essentially as storehouses of materials, sources of energy, or receptacles of waste. Thus, human interaction with any ecosystem mainly involves harvesting of materials, which amounts to depletion of natural resources, and disposal of wastes, amounting to pollution of natural resources and contamination of food chains. Another fundamentally degrading type of intervention by humans into ecosystems occurs through the transport and communication systems of humans. The roads and rails laid by humans to facilitate their movement from one location to another, as well as conduits such as water pipelines, oil pipelines, or gas pipelines and power transmission lines laid by humans to transport materials or energy from one location to another, all result in fragmenting a hitherto connected habitat into disconnected patches. Such fragmentation amounts to reducing the overall resource available to the organisms occupying that habitat, thereby affecting their chances of survival and disrupting the flow of energy and materials within the ecosystems, thereby degrading the ecosystem. Thus, the influence of humans on their environment is observed to be largely destructive or degrading to the natural ecosystems and only occasionally conservative of ecosystems. It is generally documented that only when a community recognizes its direct dependence on an ecosystem in terms of the materials like food, fodder, fuel, etc., directly harvest from it, or indirect dependence on an ecosystem in terms of shading, cooling, etc., soil formation, pollination, etc., and recreation, etc., that the community actively protects, conserves, or restores an ecosystem. Loss, degradation, or fragmentation of habitats in an ecosystem invariably results in a corresponding loss of or degradation of the ecosystem services offered by the ecosystem to the local community. So, what we have seen today are the different interactions between humans and their environment. How humans are modifying the environment and how the environment is putting some constraint on human development. Please go through our text available and at the same time look at the further reading material if you have more doubts, if you need to know more about these subjects. Thank you very much.